Hi, this is Becky Spain, your instructor for business communication. Today we will be reviewing Chapter 15 in Excellence in Business Communication. This chapter is going to look at building careers and writing resumes. This chapter is full of a lot of really great information, and let's get started by looking at our learning objective number 1, finding the ideal opportunity in today's job market. 8 key steps to finding the ideal opportunity in today's job market. So whether you're at the place in your life where you want to find a different job, or perhaps you're waiting until you graduate from college and then you're going to be ready to start looking for a job, you're going to find these tips helpful. So identifying and landing a job can actually be a long and challenging process. Sometimes you do find a job right out of the gate, but a lot of times you end up having to look for a longer period of time than what you originally thought in order to be able to find the right job. Skills that you're developing in this course is going to give you a competitive advantage. Let's begin by looking at the first step, crafting a personal strategy. So as you're thinking about what you want, the first thing that you need to do is to get organized. Because your job search could last several months and could involve multiple contacts with a dozen different companies, you need to find a way to keep all of the details straight. What job you applied for, what's the job description look like, did you call or did someone contact you? Did you have information on email addresses or appointments? You need to make sure that you have a way to keep all of this information organized. You'll be surprised. You think you'll remember it, but if the job search drags on for very long, some of the details will start getting blurry. So make sure that you have a way to keep all of that information available to you so that you know where you are in the process with each of the different applications that you've made. Though it may be a while before you're ready to start your job search, not too early to get started with some essential research and some planning tasks. If you wait until the last minute, you're going to miss opportunities and you won't be as prepared as other candidates that you'll be competing against, especially if you are waiting until you complete your education, because all college graduates that are seniors graduate at the same time, and you'll find yourself in a larger pool of candidates. Another thing to keep in mind is that you may need to look for stepping stone opportunities. So you might need to take a job that's not like your dream job or doesn't meet 100% of your expectations, but that might be a good thing to do to keep the job, take the job and just keep looking for the job that you want in someday in the future. View any job that you choose to take as a learning opportunity. Whether it's a great company that you're going to learn really great business practices from, or even if it's an ineffective company, you can learn what not to do, and sometimes that can be a really great teacher. Take some time now and explore possibilities. You need to try to find your passion and identify careers that might appeal to you. Writing the story of you is a valuable planning exercise that can help you think about where you want to go and how to present yourself to employers that you might be interested in working for. Begin by writing out things that you are passionate about, list skills that you possess, put down your ability to help help an organization reach its goals, any experiences that you've had so far, and the path that you want to follow in the future. Think in terms of an image or a theme you'd like to project. How do you want to package yourself? Are you academically gifted? Are you an effective leader? Are you a creative problem solver? Through and writing out your own story can help you to put together your thoughts on where you want to go, and then also what you have to offer. As an example of what your story might look like in the way of being formatted on page 480 in your book. Remember that this is a private document designed to help you clarify your thoughts and plans, although you'll probably find ways to adapt some of what you've written to various job search documents and even to your resume. The second step is learning to think like an employer. So look at the hiring equation from the employer's perspective. So just like what we've learned about in writing, that we always want to think about our audience's perspective, when you're thinking about a job, you need to think about the employer's perspective. Remember that companies take a risk with every hiring decision that they make. The risk that the person hired might not meet the expectations, and the risk that they could let a better candidate slip through their fingers. So many companies judge the success of their recruiting efforts by what's called a quality of hire, which is a measure of how closely new employees meet the company's needs. But this moves beyond just your ability to handle the job. HR managers also want to know that you're reliable and that you're motivated to do the work that you've been assigned, and that you're going to be an asset in their workplace. You need to research industries and companies of interests. So learning about professions and industries, individual companies, that's really a vital step. Don't limit your research to easily accessible sources such as a company's website. Companies are likely to be impressed by creative research that you've done, such as interviewing their customers to learn more about how the firm does business. When you're in an interview and you have an opportunity to share what you've learned about the company, that can be a real selling point for you. There are a lot of websites where you can learn more about companies that you're interested in, as well as finding job openings. Start with the Riley Guide. It offers advice to online job searches, as well as links to hundreds of specialized websites that post openings in specific industries and professions. To learn more about contemporary business topics, be sure to review periodicals and newspapers with specific business sections. And don't forget about bloggers and podcasters that offer news on the business world. So take advantage of job search apps as well, including those offered by job posting websites and major employers that you might be interested in. Has a really great listing for you to review in regard to job search websites. You can find those in your book on page 481. Okay, the next step, translate your potential into a specific solution for employers. An important aspect of an employer's quality of hire challenge is determining how well a candidate's attributes and experience will actually translate into a specific position. So customizing your resume to each job opening is an important step in showing employers that you will be a good fit. So from your initial contact and all the way through the interviewing process, you will have opportunities to impress recruiters by explaining how your potential translates to the specific needs of the position. Now, I know that this can seem overwhelming, that you may actually have to revise your resume to specifically be tailored to each of the job openings that you're applying for, but it certainly is a huge step in trying to help you get an interview. And remember that the purpose of your resume is to help you get the interview. And then when you're in the interview, you'll have an opportunity to use your conversation and your words and your examples to help companies realize how you can be a great fit for the position that they have open. Another step is to take the initiative to find opportunities, and I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but when it comes to finding the right opportunity for you, the easiest ways are not always the most productive. So major job boards such as Monsters and classified services such as Craigslist might have thousands of openings, but you also have to remember that there are thousands of job seekers who are looking at and applying for those same openings. Posting job openings on these sites is sometimes a company's last resort because they've not been able to find somebody for those positions, and so they've exhausted all other possibilities. You need to be careful about limiting your choices to just those that are part of these massive postings where you've got a lot of competition. Instead, search for the same job openings as everyone else by taking the initiative and go find opportunities that are not listed on major websites. And you can do that one way is by talking to your friends, know what you're looking for, and find out if they have any openings in their company. A lot of companies offer incentives or bonuses for employees who recommend someone and then that person is hired and they stay with the company for a certain amount of time, they actually give bonuses. I know I used to work for a company that did that. And so that encourages the employees to be thinking about, who do I know that might be a good fit for my company? Because not only is that great for you because you can get into a company through an employee recommendation, but I'm also going to make sure that I am recommending people who are going to be a good fit for the organization, because I'm only going to get paid out if you actually work out and stay. A great tip is to think about companies that you know about that you would actually like to work for, and then focus your efforts on them. You can get in touch with their HR department, describe what you have to offer the company, and then ask to be considered if opportunities come up. Also, reach out to company representatives on social networks. Know when the time that you're making the call or reaching out through social media might be the very moment that that company has started to look for someone to handle a position, but they haven't even had a chance to advertise it yet. So I actually got a job like that one day. I had a company that a friend of mine worked for, and I just made a call to the HR department to let them know I was interested in their company, and they actually had a position that they had gotten that day that they needed someone for. I ended up getting the opportunity to come in and apply for the position, and they hired me on the spot. So sometimes it works out that way, and anytime that you can reduce the pool of candidates that you are competing against, it's going to increase your chances of getting the job. So though Monster and those types of lists have a use, it also is keeping you in a pool of candidates that's much larger, so the competition is much higher. Tip is building your network, and we've actually kind of bridged to that, because what we were talking about is exactly doing that, networking with other people that you know, letting them know what you're interested in and seeing if there's an opportunity to make a fit there. So networking is defined as the process of making informal connections with mutually beneficial business contacts. It takes place wherever and whenever people talk. It can happen at an industry function or social gatherings or alumni reunions, and it happens all over the internet. And the one thing I will tell you about networking is that you never know when someone that you're talking to, it's going to lead to something else. So networking is just making a great professional impression on people that you meet out in the world, and then just talking, letting them know who you are and finding out who they are, and then hoping that things will get put together for you. But then also remember that networking is reciprocal, meaning that you'll also need to look for opportunities to connect this person with something that you know about. So if you have not started networking, you need to start networking now. Start networking with people that you're going to school with. And branch out by identifying people with similar interests in your target profession and industries and companies. Read news sites, blogs, and other online resources. Follow industry leaders on Twitter. Connect with people on LinkedIn and on Facebook, particularly in groups dedicated to particular career interests that you might have. Then on the thought of starting by networking with people that you're going to school with, be sure to participate in student business organizations. You can also visit trade shows to learn about various industries and rub shoulders with people who work right now in those industries. And don't overlook volunteering. You not only meet people that you can network with, but you can also show your ability to solve problems, manage projects, and lead people. And it looks great on your resume. Okay. Remember, when you're networking, that there is etiquette that applies. Be excited that you've made a connection, but don't overwhelm people that you've met with too many requests or messages. And when you do communicate, make sure that you're succinct and professional in all of your communication efforts. Never give out another person's contact information without their permission to do so. So if you think you have an opportunity to connect to people that are both looking for the same thing, you need to ask the person that you're going to give their information out first, or take that person's information and say, hey, I've got somebody and I'd be happy to give them your information. Don't email resumes to complete strangers, and remember to say thank you every time someone helps you. Another tip is to seek career counseling. So the university's Career Center should offer a wide variety of services that can help you, including individual counseling, job fairs, on-campus interviews, and then also should have a listing of jobs available in the area. Counselors can also give you advice on career planning and help you with resume preparation and interviewing techniques. So be sure to explore what the Career Center has. And then finally, avoiding mistakes. So while you're making all of these positive moves to show employers that you would be a quality hire for them, take care to avoid the simple blunders that can torpedo a job search. Make sure that you have someone else proofread your resume after you've gone over it several times. Having an error on a resume can absolutely cost you a job interview. When you are communicating with people that are in the interviewing process, if you're sending something in writing, do not misspell the name of the person whom you are writing. Remember to always show up 5 to 10 minutes early for an interview. Never show up late. Complete every line of a job application, and if you don't have information to go on that line, you can write NA for not applicable. That way they know that you've read the question and that it's not applicable to you. And make sure that you remember that even the things that you're doing not in the application process can affect you. Never tweet anything unprofessional. Remember that you are one of several candidates for any position and that recruiters are looking for a way to narrow down that list to the best candidates, so don't give them a reason to toss out your resume or to say no to you. All right. So that resume is going to be a big part of landing job interviews. And so that is our learning objective number 2. Explain the process of planning your resume, including how to choose the best resume organization. So although you may create many messages during your career search, the resume definitely most important document. You will be able to use it directly in many instances and adapting it to the variety of different jobs that you're finding that would be available to you. And so you need to have a good foundation for your resume. As you begin to write your resume, I'm sure that you will not be surprised to find out that we're going to apply the 3-step process where you're going to plan, write, and then complete. The planning step, you're going to do the same things that you do in other writing types. You're going to first analyze the situation. You're going to recognize that the purpose of the resume is to get the interview and not the job, and keep that in mind as you plan what you're going to write. As you gather information, be sure that you're researching target industries and learning about various jobs and what to expect, and also learn what you can about the hiring managers if possible. Need to choose the best medium for delivery, and if you're going to do a resume that is traditional and paper, make sure that you choose good quality paper. And then you're going to choose a model of organization that highlights your strengths and downplays any shortcomings. You're going to use the chronological approach whenever possible, unless you have a good reason not to. That's the most commonly used approach. Then in step 2, the writing process, you want to remember your audience and adapt your audience to your audience by planning to catch a recruiter's eye within seconds. In order to do this, you're going to need to translate your education and your work experience into attributes that your employer will value. You want to write clearly and succinctly as you compose your message by using language that's appropriate to the companies or the industries that you're targeting. And you always want to remember to have a professional tone in everything that you write. And then for the 3rd step, completing your resume, after writing your first draft, you're going to revise it to make sure it's clear, concise, there's no errors. Then you're going to produce your resume, giving it an attractive professional appearance. You're going to proofread it one final time for any typos or spelling errors or mechanical problems. And then finally, you're going to distribute your resume using the specific instructions that each employer has given you in the job application. So let's look at a couple of these steps a little bit more closely. So before you begin writing a resume, make sure you understand its true function. It's a brief, persuasive message intended to stimulate an employer's interest in meeting with you and learning more about you and what you have to offer their company. In other words, the purpose of the resume is not to get the job, but to get the interview. So as you conduct your research on different professions that you have interest in, learn as much as you can about the individuals who may be reading your resume. Many professionals and managers are also bloggers, or you may find that they're tweeters or that they're members of LinkedIn. If so, this will give you an opportunity to learn more about them online before you meet with them in person. So any bit of information can help you craft a more effective message. Then you want to gather your pertinent information. If you have not already been keeping a log or a journal of all your accomplishments, you need to start doing that. Gather all the information. You need to document your work and your educational history. Make sure that you know specific dates, your specific duties, any accomplishments that you've had from any previous job that you've held. You need to itemize any educational experience, and remember not only your college degree or any other certificates or degrees that you have earned, including like skill certificates. You want to mention any academic awards or scholarships that you've received, and then to also include any volunteer activities, even volunteer activities at school or in the community that might be relevant to your job search. You may not use every piece of information that you have listed for all of your pertinent information. It's good to have it at your fingertips. You may need to use it for some of your resumes or some of the information that you'll be giving employers in interviews or even in cover letters. So having all of that information listed and kind of put your thoughts together will help you to be able to deliver that more effectively. Then in selecting the best media or channels, you should be expected to produce your resume in several different media and formats. So your printed traditional resume, there's a printed scannable resume, and then there's electronic plain text files, Word files, online resumes, and PDF files. So whatever the format that is required, remember that the effective resume designs are simple, clean, and professional. You want to make sure that you're organizing your resume around your strengths. Although you see a number of ways to organize a resume, most are some variation of the chronological, functional, or a combination of the two. So the right choice depends on your background and your goals, but the most commonly used and the most commonly requested is chronological order. So let's begin by looking at this one. Chronological resume is preferred by a lot of employers because it's in a format that gives the people who are reviewing your resume a way to quickly review to see if you have had continual employment history. The work experience section of your resume is going to be the dominant part of your resume. So place it immediately after your contact information and your introductory statement. Develop your work experience section by listing your jobs in reverse chronological order, beginning with the most recent one and then giving more space to the most recent positions that you've held. So for each job, start by listing the employer's name and location, your official job title, and the dates that you held that position. Still in that job, you'll just write to present rather than a date that you are leaving, since you haven't left yet. Then following this information should be a short block of text that highlights your accomplishments in a way that is relevant to the job that you're applying for and easily understandable to your readers. Now, the functional resume can be used if there's a specific reason for it. It actually emphasizes your skills and accomplishments, actually identifies your employers and your academic experience in subordinate sections. So this pattern stresses individual areas of competence. So it's useful for people who are just entering the job market and want to redirect their attention to what skills that they have, or some reason you've had little continuous career related experience, because one of the things that it's the first thing that most recruiters look for is whether or not you've had continual work experience. So the functional approach does have some advantages. Without having to read through the job descriptions, employers can see what you can do for them, which can be a plus. It can emphasize your earlier job experience, and it can de-emphasize any lack of career progress or lengthy unemployment that you might not want to call attention to. However, you should be aware that because the functional resume can obscure work history, that many employment professionals or HR people are actually suspicious of it. It also lacks evidence of job experience that supports your skill claims. So be leery of the functional resume unless you have a specific reason to use that or if it's requested. You may want to use a combination resume. It can actually mesh the skills focus of the functional format with the job history focus of the chronological format. So the chief advantage of this format is that it allows you to highlight your capabilities and education when you don't have a long and steady employment history without raising concerns that you might be hiding something from your potential employer about your past. Leads us right to addressing some areas of concern. So many people have career issues that could be of concern for employers. Some of these issues are things like frequent job changes. If you've had a number of short-term jobs of a similar type, such as independent contracting or temporary assignments, you can overcome this by trying to group them under a single heading. Also, if past job positions were eliminated as a result of layoffs or mergers, find a subtle way to convey that information. If not in your resume, then in your cover letter. Reasonable employers understand that professionals may be forced to job hop when the circumstances were beyond their control, such as a layoff or reduction in workforce. Sometimes there are gaps in work history, and this can be a red flag to HR hiring managers. So mention relative experience and education you gained during employment gaps, such as if you were volunteering or working at some community work. Really don't think that you have much work history to mention. You can mention volunteer work and memberships in professional groups. Put this on your resume rather than just leaving it blank. Relative coursework and internships can also be listed. Other end of that scale, let's say that you feel like you may be viewed as being overqualified for a position that you're applying for, and that is a concern for an employer because they don't want to hire somebody who actually has the ability to get a better job, worried that you'll leave quickly or that you'll be bored by the work that they've got for you. You can address some of that in your resume by toning down your resume and focusing exclusively on experience and skills that relate to the position that you're applying for. Some other areas of concern is long-term employment with one company. You can address this by itemizing each position held at the firm to show the interior mobility and increased responsibilities that you had. If you've had a job termination for cause, meaning you were let go and there was a reason for that, you need to be honest with your interviewers. Show that you are a hardworking employee and counter their concerns with recommendations and examples of completed projects that you do have in your history. You may also have a criminal record, and if that's the case, consider spelling out this in a broadcast letter about your skills and experience rather than a resume and a letter. Prepare answers to questions that interviewers will probably pose to you. But above all, whether it's a termination for cause or criminal record, remember to be honest. Employers finding errors in resumes or even job applications or interviews can not only be a reason to lose a job interview, but I actually had a situation once where somebody had lied on an application about having a college degree. The college degree was not needed for the job, but they listed that they had it, and then whenever they were unable, HR was unable to verify that, then the person was identified as having lied on their application and they were terminated. And it was really sad that that happened because, of course, that person left another job for the job that they lied about having the college degree, and they lost that job. They ended up being unemployed, and so it was a really sad situation. But HR will consider that if you've lied about one thing, you may have lied about others, and so that person was terminated after only having been with the company for a week, because that's the point at which they determined that there had been a lie on the application. Learning objective number 3, writing your resume. Describe the tasks involved in writing your resume and list the major sections of a traditional resume. If you're uncomfortable about writing about yourself, you're not alone. Many people find it difficult to write their own resumes, so if you get stuck, just either first imagine that you're somebody else writing a resume for this person that's actually you, or you can actually ask someone else if they could help you to write your resume, or that you guys could like swap work and work on each other's resume, and that might help you to get past that point of feeling very uncomfortable in putting this important document together. So we talked about this already, but keeping your resume honest. All employers do some form of background checking. They're going to contact your references. They're going to verify employment. They're going to check for criminal records, verify your college degree if you list that you have one. So make sure that you're answering questions honestly. So remember that given the networked value or nature of today's market, lying on a resume could actually haunt you for years to come. So keep that in mind. Adapting your resume to the audience. So in a competitive job market, the more you look like a good fit, the better your chances will be of securing an interview. So address your readers' business concerns by showing how your abilities meet the demands and expectations of the position that they're hiring for, as well as that organization as a whole. So here's a tip. In adapting your resume, use the same terminology as the employer uses to describe job responsibilities and professional accomplishments. So more and more employers are using applicant tracking systems, and they're looking for matches of your language to what the employer looks for in the position that they're filling. Translate your work experiences into terminology of the hiring organization. Composing your resume. So write your resume using a simple and direct style. Use short phrases. Don't use whole sentences. Avoid using the word I. It can sound both self-involved and it gets pretty repetitious by the time that you outline all of your skills and accomplishments. Instead, start your phrases with strong action verbs. Support anything that you claim with evidence. If you have something that you're saying that you've done in the past, if you have some way to support that with an outcome, be sure and list that. First item on the last slide was to start your phrases with strong action verbs, and in your book on page 490 there's a listing of those, as well as in this PowerPoint presentation. For example, you might say, created a campus organization for students interested in entrepreneurship. Or you could say, managed a fast food restaurant and 4 employees. Whenever you can, quantify the results so that your claims don't just come across as empty puffery. So rather than just saying that you managed, to actually say how many employees that you managed, that helps to give more value to what you're saying. Look at some of the essential resume elements. So the first thing an employer needs to know is your contact information, your name, address, phone number, and email address. And then you're going to do a brief introductory statement. This statement is going to follow your contact information, and it should be one of these 3 types of statements. Either a career objective that identifies a specific job you want or a general career you want to pursue, or it could have be a qualification summary that just gives a brief view of what your key qualifications are. Once again, when you write those, you may need to adjust those to meet the job that you're applying for at that time. And the third type of introductory statement is a career summary that recaps your career with the goal of presenting increasing levels of responsibility and performance. On your resume, you'll also want to list your education, and if you are a recent graduate or if you're still a student, your education is probably one of your strongest selling points. So present your educational background in depth, especially if you don't have a lot of work history, and then choose facts that support what you're saying. You can list your GPA if you would like, but you certainly don't have to do this. And be sure to list any off-campus training that you attended or organizations that worked specifically with businesses or with government. Some additional critical elements for your resume. This is your work experience, and we've talked about this some already, but focus your work experience section on your overall theme in a way that shows how your past can contribute to your employer's future. I want to say that again because that's really critically important. When you're putting your information together, try to do so in a way that shows how your past can contribute to your employer's future. And that goes again to our audience, remembering what it is that they need, what it is that they're looking for. That your work experience emphasizes your accomplishments, and once again you're going to have to tailor this so that it specifically aligns with the each specific job that you are applying for. So best way, of course, list your jobs in reverse chronological order. Devote the most space to the jobs that are the most recent or are most closely related to the position that you're applying for. You can include, and you should include, military service, any internships that you've taken part in, whether they are paid or not paid, any part-time or temporary jobs that are related to your career objective. You'll want to include those as well. You also want to list activities and achievements outside of your work context, so if they're relative to the job that you're seeking. Remember that this is a good opportunity to highlight any skills that you might have as a leader or as a communicator or as a team player. How did you use those when you were doing this other volunteer work? You don't have much job experience to put on your resume, and you don't have a lot of volunteer work that you want to include. You can also include involvement in athletics or other organized activities, as well as publications that you may have been printed in, or projects that you've worked on, or anything else that might require relevant business skills. As a general rule, your resume should not include personal data beyond the information that we've already talked about. So you don't need to put references available upon request. That's going to just be assumed, and never, ever, ever put your work email address or a picture of what you look like with your resume. The book has several pages of really great examples, and I'll let you look through those at your leisure, but do take time to look through these. These start on page 494 of your book, and then 495 and 496. Let's go on with learning objective number 4, which is our final learning objective for this chapter, completing your resume. Characterize the completing steps for resumes, including the 6 most common formats in which you can produce a resume. So completing your resume involves revising it for optimum quality, producing it in various forms and media that you'll need depending on what positions that you're applying for, and then proofreading for any errors in your resume. So remember again that the functional purpose of the resume is to get the interview, not to get the job. So the recruiting or hiring managers, they want to find your top skills, your current job, and your education in just a matter of seconds when they look at your resume. So if this information is hard to find, they're just going to toss your resume aside and move on to the next one, because chances are there's a lot of people applying at their company. So revise your resume for clarity and conciseness. Weed out any details or irrelevant information until your resume is tight, clear, and focused. And do not hesitate to get other people to read over your resume and get you feedback so that you'll know when you have accomplished that. It's easy to get lost in the details of our own lives. How long should your resume be? Well, this is a big question. A lot of times it depends on the depth of the experience, the experience that you have, as well as the level of the position that you're applying for. But as a general rule, if you have fewer than 5 years of professional experience, you need to keep your resume down to 1 page. So yes, you're going to have to be tight, clear, and focused in what you say. But you have to remember, hiring managers are looking at lots and lots of different resumes, and they're not going to wade through 5 pages of information that you've put together. So keep those points in mind as you create your document. Producing your resume, no matter how many media and formats you eventually choose for producing your resume, a clean, professional looking design is an absolute must. Remember, the use of white space, once again, is going to make you even be more clear and concise, but make sure that you have white space on that resume. Recruiters and hiring managers typically want to skim your essential information in a matter of seconds, and anything that distracts or delays them or overwhelms them by having way too much on 1 page is going to end up working against you. In choosing a design strategy, you're going to find a wide range of resume designs available to you. Don't choose a style just because it seems trendy or flashy or different. Instead, keep your audience, your goals, and your resources in mind. If the intended audience expects you to have design skills, you'll want to show them in your resume. But for most of us, we just need to use a classic, conservative design that features a simple, easy to read layout, effective use of white space, and then don't forget to use clear typefaces. Let's look at printing. Though a lot of the jobs that you're going to apply for are going to be done online, there are still going to be opportunities for you to have a hard copy of a printed resume. If you don't send that in or hand deliver it, you'll most likely will need to bring a copy with you to your interview. Whether it was asked for or not, make sure that you have a copy if you go to an interview. When choosing paper, you want to use a higher quality, heavier paper designed specifically for resumes or for other products. Don't use cheap paper, and don't use gimmicky paper in different colors or with borders. Once again, you want to look professional. The best colors, matter of fact, the only color choices would be white or slightly off-white. Have a good printer that's going to turn out a good copy. You may need to take it to a copy center. It's becoming more and more commonplace that job posting websites or employers want you to upload a Microsoft Word file or to attach it to an email message as part of your application process. So this method of transferring information preserves the design and the layout of your resume and saves you the trouble of creating a plain text version of it. However, before you submit a Word file to anyone, make sure that your computer is free of viruses. If it's infected, of course, that would not make a good first impression. And if it gets scanned out, it won't get read. So you might want to consider creating a PDF file so that the order of your resume, that it doesn't get moved around. And of course, then creating an online or social resume. So a variety of terms are used to describe online resumes, including an e-portfolio, a personal web page, social media resume, multimedia resume. All of these are just formats that provide the opportunity to expand on information contained in your basic resume with links to any projects or screencasts or online videos, that kind of thing. So regardless of the approach that you take in creating an online resume, you need to remember that your online presence is a career management tool. So the way that you're portrayed online can work for you or it can work against you. It's up to you on how you create a positive impression. During the application process, don't expect or ask employers to retrieve a resume from your website. Rather, you need to submit it using their preferred medium. And we've talked about this, but proofreading your resume. Employers are going to view your resume as a concrete example of your ability to pay attention to quality and detail. So your resume doesn't need to look good or pretty good. It needs to be letter perfect. Although it may not seem quite fair, just 1 or 2 errors in a job application package are enough to doom you as a candidate for that position. So your resume is one of the most important documents that you'll ever write. So don't rush, don't cut corners, especially when it comes to proofreading. Check, double check, triple check all your headings, lists for clarity, parallelism, your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, dates, phone numbers, email addresses. Double check all of that information and then ask at least 3 other people to read it too. Now you've got this document honed down to 1 page or 2, depending on how long your employment history and the kind of job that you're applying for. You've triple checked it. You've had people triple check it. It looks good. You've got white space. You're tight. Now you're ready to distribute. So how you distribute your resume depends on the number of employers you target and their preferences for receiving your resume. You may have times when you need to mail a printed resume. You'll also have lots of times when you will be emailing your resume. You can also submit your resume to employer's website and then of course posting your resume on job websites that you've researched. So this concludes the final lecture for our class time together. However, you will note that there was 1 additional chapter in this book, and that's applying and interviewing for employment. If you are at that point in your career, I hope that you will take a few minutes and review the information in Chapter 16, but Chapter 16 will not be a part of any assignments that you're given, nor will it be part of your final exam. So I've enjoyed our time together. I hope that you have as well. As always, be sure to reach out to me with any questions that you have, and I look forward to having you in class in the future.